What do you have?
Shutter Island.
Shutter Island. It's the new Martin Scorsese film.
It is. Are we saying Scorsese or Scorsese at the moment?
I don't think anyone says Scorsese.
When I interviewed Ray Winston, who'd worked with him, he referred to him as Martin Scorsese. And it was Ray Winston, and I wasn't going to argue with him, frankly.
What?
He said Martin Scorsese.
That's just that, but that must be wrong.
No, it is. It's inaccurate. But fine. Put you in a room with Ray Winston, who says, "When I was working with Martin Scorsese," and you say, "Oh, sorry, that's not how he said it." So anyway, story set in the 1950s. The story as ripe as anything, based on a story by Dennis Lehane, who of course is the guy behind Mystic River and Gone Baby Gone, both of which have been adapted for film. Story is Leonardo DiCaprio is a US Marshal. He's previously in the war. He is sent with a partner, played by Mark Ruffalo, over to the eponymous Shutter Island, which is, in classic B-movie tradition, a strange enclosed island asylum where incredibly dangerous mad people are kept by a group of equally sinister clipboard-wielding doctor types. They've been sent over there because one of the patients has mysteriously disappeared from a cell which is so heavily guarded that it would be impossible for anybody to disappear unless they had help from the inside. But is everything as it seems? Who are the patients? Who are the doctors?
Lots of hand action at the moment.
Let's find out from Sir Ben Kingsley.
Those paintings are quite accurate. Used to be the kind of patients we deal with here were shackled and left in their own filth. They were beaten, as if whipping them bloody would drive the psychosis out. We drove screws into their brains. We submerged them in icy water until they lost consciousness or even drowned.
And now?
We treat them, try to heal, try to cure. And if that fails, at least we provide them with a measure of comfort in their lives, calm.
These are all violent defenders, right? I mean, they've hurt people, murdered them in some cases.
In almost all cases, yes.
And personally, Doctor, I'd have to say screw their sense of calm.
The Leonardo DiCaprio now playing a rather more grown-up role than in the past. Now, a couple of people in looking at this film have said, "Oh, well, you know, it's essentially silly," and it is ripe and silly as anything. It's deliberately a sort of a B-movie foray. To some extent, it harks back to the remake of Cape Fear. It has a musical selection which honks and quacks and guffs like a large ferry coming in. Well, we've got a very. If we got the second clip, London, just play the beginning of the second clip, which will just demonstrate for you
the soundtrack that quacks.
Except honking. Here's a little bit of soundtrack.
What is a honking?
Well, listen.
Okay.
Oh, it's not quite there.
It's almost there.
Basically, it's got a soundtrack which says, you know, serious stuff, bad, everything turned up to it. It sounds like a ferry coming into dock on several occasions. It's basically a soundtrack which is. It reminded me to some extent of the soundtrack to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Remember the opening of The Shining when you see the VW driving? I mean, Ligeti obviously is the connection only with Kubrick, but you see the VW driving on the hills and things go honk. We've got the clip. You got the clip. Oh, here we go.
That's honking.
There we go, yeah, there's an awful lot of that. So all the way through, the whole tone of the thing is turned up to hysterical. And it reminded me to me of Shock Corridor, the film by, the Sam Fuller movie, Shock Corridor. You seen that?
What?
Shock Corridor, the Sam Fuller movie set in an asylum. Shock Corridor.
Shock Corridor?
Yes, have you never seen that?
No.
Okay, have you seen the ninth configuration?
What happens in it?
They're in a corridor and it's pretty shocking.
It's a shocking corridor.
It's a corridor.
It's shocking because it just goes on and those double
There's one
doors.
fantastic scene in Shock Corridor, which is one of those. It's like a movie asylum, and at one point, our anti-hero finds himself inadvertently opens a door and finds himself locked in a room full of women, and the voiceover goes, "Oh no, nymphos." Anyway, it has that ripe quality. It also reminded me of the Ninth Configuration, the William Peter Blatty movie, in which the whole thing about, who's the patients, who's the thing. It's basically, if you know anything about the B-movie conventions of people going to asylums, you'd be really not trying very hard if the whole plot didn't start to unfurl as soon as you get in. But that's one of the joys of it. The other thing is we have Max von Sydow.
Directed by Martin
Scorsese. As this very sinister Uber doctor type who probably has some kind of Nazi past, and the whole implication is that the whole thing is being played out in some sort of Boys from Brazil type like experiment thing that maybe is overhang from World War II, or maybe is all entirely in the mind of the protagonist. Who can tell? Now, I enjoyed it very much. I enjoyed it on the level of it's completely ridiculous. It's honk quack brap soundtrack. It's Leonardo DiCaprio's performance, doing chewing the scenery, where Sir Ben Kingsley doing his most.
Is it better than The Hood?
I was going to say his most Thunderbird-like performance since Thunderbird. Do you remember? Actually, I always thought his role in the Thunderbirds movie was perfectly cast, because he does look exactly like the puppet of the Hood anyway. But he does that Ben Kingsley thing about being slightly sinister and slightly bald, well, profoundly bald in a sinister way. It reminded me of that thing from With Nail and I, where the guy says, "Yeah, the judge started coming on all bald with me." And I really, really enjoyed it, even whilst thinking it's completely ridiculous. It looks. The difference between it, of course, and a genuine B movie is that it cost a lot more. It's got much more famous actors. It has much higher production values. It has surely much more expensive music clearance rights, and the expectations are much higher. But I don't see why Martin Scorsese shouldn't be able to enjoy himself with essentially making a throwaway B movie in the same way that Quentin Tarantino has spent the last portion of his career making what he considers to be grindhouse movies. This is more fun in its pastiche way than the stuff than Death Proof, which Tarantino has done, and I really enjoyed myself, even whilst knowing just how ridiculous and silly it is. And when the unexpected twist comes, believe me, if you didn't see it coming, you really aren't trying.
What happens? What's the twist?
Richard Gere dies.